What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the MSP Water Cooler. I am your host, Jonathan Schofield. My friends call me Scofie, and we are joined not only by our OG co-host, Jeffrey Newton, today of Sift AI and the MSP, I'm going to say your podcast wrong. What is it again?
Insider.
Yeah, that's right. MSP Insider Podcast. As soon as I said MSP, I was like, oh, crap. I forgot the rest of it. The MSP Insider Podcast. And we are also joined today by none other than the Director of Business Development for Dark Horse Business Systems and FindMyITPartner.com, my dear friend, Luis Grimaldo. Luis, I'm going to give you a second to introduce yourself here momentarily. But first of all, let me just welcome our viewers to the stream today. If you are an OG and you've been to one of these before, say hello in the chat. We value you. We know that we skipped the last two live streams, and there were legitimate reasons why, and we've missed this. We are so thrilled to be back, and if you're a return viewer, we are very thrilled that you came back for the ride with us. If this is your first time, it's very important that we set the stage for what you're about to experience, because this is not your typical live stream. We have come with no PowerPoints. We have come with no structured outlines. We have a loose topic. And we want you to be a critical part of this experience. So you have sales professionals at your disposal, leadership at your disposal. And so if you are an MSP business owner, growth leader, sales professional in the IT services industry, this is where you should be. We want you to drop your questions for us in the comments on LinkedIn, or if you're one of the two people that watch on YouTube, you can drop them there as well. Or even better, if you're brave and your webcam is working, I am grabbing the link to join us backstage, and you can jump on screen and ask your question live. We'll give you about a minute and some change to say hi, bring your question to us, and we'll kick you out just like a radio show. And then we're going to let the experts riff on your question. What kinds of questions should you ask? Something related to sales, business development, marketing, growth in your IT services business, hiring, firing, commission plans, how you structure, how you train, the do's and don'ts, handling objections, literally anything related to sales, business development, or marketing or growth. This is a great place to ask those questions. Rob, longtime viewer, good to see you back here. Don't be shy, say hi, ask your questions. While we're waiting for some of those questions, I have a few queued up as well. Luis, I am embarrassed. I am embarrassed in 5 years to get you on one of these. Luis and I have known each other a hot minute, and I won't steal his thunder in his own introduction. But let me just say I'm thrilled that you're here. Luis, what should our viewers know about you? And favorite, I don't even know the answer to this. Favorite flavor of ice cream?
That's it's pistachio. Pistachio is my absolute favorite. I'm a sales development representative, and I actually got I don't know if I want to say displeasure or just the interesting fact that I landed in MSP sales right off the bat, right off the gate. So it's been quite an evolution from cutting my teeth at a call center as a sales development rep for SaaS companies, and then evolving to representing MSPs in several projects, and then finally linking up with you and, doing the ladder of growth and evolution in this role, and really learning how unique this particular niche in sales is as far as MSP sales.
Love it. Well, pistachio, by the way, totally underrated flavor. Jeffrey, what's your favorite ice cream? And do you mess around with the pistache?
I do like pistachio. Yeah, that's a good one. It has a bleed over in color, oftentimes with mint chocolate chip, which is the other go-to. So
okay. Yeah. So the green stuff.
Yeah. It's also like, at least in my section of the country, the green stuff reminds me of Thanksgiving. There was always a pistachio, like Jello, Cool Whip, pineapple. I don't know. It's called green stuff.
The green stuff. So it was like a very Midwestern they would call it like a salad at the potluck, but it was that Jello and Cool Whip and that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
I got a question for you guys. In your area of the States, do they make ambrosia salad?
Yeah, the name, but you'd have to remind me of what
it's Cool Whip and fruit.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Small Midwestern town, potluck after church, those types of like the goulashes and the Jello salads and the 7-layer stuff and all that. Yes, that's what I grew up with. You don't find that as much here in Greenville, but whatever. Anyways, hey, if you're watching, I'm curious what your favorite flavor of ice cream is. This was not planned that we were going to ask this, but mine is Oreo peanut butter. And I know you don't typically find those together, but like an Oreo peanut butter shake or Oreo and peanut butter in an ice. Oh my gosh, that's my jam. That's my jam. If we're gonna have ice cream, all right. So we got a few viewers online. We don't have any questions in the comments yet, though. We have preloaded some with some very interesting, possibly controversial topics for us to dig into. Oh, Kevin, I see you there. Just had some ambrosia salad for Easter. So Kevin knows what's up. All right, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, Kevin, Rob, the two people who are in the comments, let us know if you've got questions for us because we'd love to hear from you guys. Oh, Rob is over here, mint chocolate chip. We're still talking ice cream and salad, guys. All right, good stuff. All right, so Rob, you and Jeffrey get along there. Very good. My youngest daughter, loves mint chocolate chip as well. That's her favorite. So, okay. So I want to start with the first question that came preloaded. We had a gentleman join us. He wasn't able to stay around for the live, but he came in backstage in the studio beforehand. If you know Jeff Sumner, shout out to Jeff Sumner, Tech Guides, MSP in Pennsylvania, good friend, and he hung out with us before we went live. And I'm going to paraphrase his question, but he described himself as a curmudgeon, okay? And he was making note of these MSPs who are hiring BDRs and they're cold calling they're cold calling prospects. Maybe they're dropping into their prospects' offices with like a box of donuts or something like that. And he's like, personally, that would not work on me. That would be a huge turnoff to me. In fact, he described himself as a curmudgeon. He's like, so what's the balance when I think about what works for me versus what I think might work with my target market? And if I'm understanding your question, Jeff, is like, how do you know whether a particular tactic, whether it be dropping off a box of donuts or picking up the phone and blind dialing a CPA out of the blue, how do you know what works and what you should or should not do? All right. John Lucas over here, cookie dough all day. That's my second favorite. So cookies and cream with peanut butter and then cookie dough, number 2. Love this. Love this. Okay, there's a lot to unpack in that question. I'm going to give it over to our special guest first. Luis, talk to us about when you're choosing a tactic, what works and what does not work, and what maybe you like or don't like or are comfortable with. What would your advice to Jeff be?
Quite honestly, I'd put my own personal opinion aside as far as what works on me, because the reality of things is it all works and it all doesn't. Like it's really who you're reaching out to. Like one thing I have very, very imprinted into my mind is I learned this early on is I'm not for everybody, but I'm definitely for somebody. It's the same thing for those tactics. Those, maybe going out to the donuts you mentioned and cold calling. It's not going to work on everybody, but it is going to work on somebody. And as varied as the approach can be, I say you're just doing yourself a disservice if you just cut off the tactic altogether. Well, granted, there's some money to be spent on some of them, but I mean, nothing worth having isn't worth time, money, and effort.
I love that. I love that. I wrote both of those down. It all works and it all doesn't. And I'm not for everyone, but I'm for somebody. All the years that you and I have worked together, I've never heard you say those phrases, and they're so poignant. I love that. I love both of those. Thank you, Luis. Jeff, what's your take on this?
Yeah, it's not too far off from both of those statements, quite honestly. The first place my mind went before Luis had answered that was really thinking back to one of my core tenant training sources when I first got into sales, and I had to go back to all 1920 pretty much to follow this guy, Napoleon Hill. and at his core would say a couple of things. One, when you're really down to talking about sales anyways, there's a couple of elements to that. One, it's purely in its essence, the transfer of conviction. So like even loaded in the question of like, is it cold calling? Is it door knocking? Is it whatever, throwing a race car event, having people come, whatever it is, doesn't really matter. To Lisa's point, like it all works and it all doesn't, because there's another essence of truth in that where he would also say, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. So both of those things point back to this core essence of what he would describe as like communication, selling between human to human is really like a nervous system to nervous system. So if you don't believe the shit that you're doing, then people are going to feel that, and that transfers to them regardless of what you're selling or how you're saying it. So the enthusiasm doesn't even matter. It's literally like nonverbal, beneath the surface. It just happens. People talk about it as like, I don't like that person's vibe. That's the way of describing it in a not 1920 way. But if you could understand and peel back to that like source of truth, you got to find the thing that works for you, that you are convicted in and that you believe in, because that's the part that's being transferred. And from there, the sale just sort of happens naturally.
Oh, this is so good. Go ahead, Luis. Chime in.
You're hitting one of my favorite subjects. Like belief is the power. Belief in what you're doing is the power, because that's what's going to convey the conviction. That's what's going to convey the confidence, and that's what's going to ultimately make people listen to you.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, yes. The transfer of conviction, whether you think you can or think you cannot, you are right. There is so much truth in what both of you have said. And I agree wholeheartedly with you both. In fact, John, I see you in the chat, and he was in a session with us earlier today. And Luis will recall, we were talking about an exercise that I learned in acting school called words like water. Okay. And the idea is you think acting, right? You're given a script, text to speak, right? And then the imposition is like you must act, you must perform, and the reality is performance needs to really be stripped away from acting to be its most authentic self. And the idea is that the words just are like water, they just dribble out of your face. And the exercise was, I'm going to give you an action, Jeff, and your scene partner, Luis, you are going to do that action to Luis, but the only tools you have are your voice and the letters of the alphabet. You're not allowed to say any other words. You're not allowed to touch him or physically impact him in any way. You just have to convey with your tone, your expression, and the letters of the alphabet. So I might say, I want you to inspire Luis. And you start at A, B, C, D, E, F. And it's a very interesting exercise. And what you take away from that ties into what you were saying, Jeff, like the tactic is less critical than the conviction with which you execute the task. The words that come out of your mouth are secondary to how. Yeah. Now, to offer perhaps a more practical perspective to answer Jeff's question, Jeff Sumner's question, okay? How do you know? Should it be a box of donuts? Should it be a cold call? Should it be an email? Should it be something else? Well, the answer is really to be found in something Luis alluded to. Who is it you're doing this with? And what do you know about where your customer is? I'm going to say this, and you both are going to roll your eyes because both Jeffrey and Luis are tired of hearing me say this, I'm sure. But where thy prospect is, there thou shalt also be, okay? Where thy prospect is, there thou shalt also be. So no one tactic, pulling doors, dropping off business cards, picking up a phone, sending an email, a DM on LinkedIn. No one tactic earns you the mental real estate required to close a new deal. It's the sum total of all the interactions you've had with that prospect that across a multi-channel approach of engaging with them. One of those channels might be pulling their door. One of them might be sending an email, might be picking up the phone. But the sum total of the mental real estate you accrue across all of these is what results in the engagement with the prospect when the timing is right, such that now you're doing sales. Now you're doing legitimate sales. So the question is really not the right question to ask. Should I pull a door? Well, does your customer have a door to pull? And if you pull it, will they be on the other side of that? And is that going to be something that your customer responds to? And also, Luis made this observation that different, I'm not for everybody, but I'm for somebody. And those different tactics will land with different people in different ways. And guess what? You have no control over what your prospect loves and doesn't love, how they want to be approached, how they don't. But you can ask them, hey, how would you like me to approach you? You don't have to guess. All right. I've been talking too long. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up? Maybe open it up to some other questions.
Trying to get super tactical again, just to be like explicitly helpful. One pattern that I have seen is that it's really easy to get sucked into the dopamine trap, as well as the like everyone telling you that you're supposed to be doing something trap. And if you really stop and just look back over the story arc, however long that is, of how you've grown your business and how the business has grown, the answers probably lie in what has worked in the past. And so the guy that implanted in my brain in 4 words was Brad Lee. He says, do more and get better. So do more of what previously worked and get better at doing that thing, and stop trying to be these other things because someone or something is compelling you to. Find the part that sticks for you, that is natural, that doesn't make you uncomfortable in a transferable way, and just do more of what you've already done. And you can always build and create other channels after that, but compound the one that works.
That's right. And I would say in our industry, Jeff, where so many of the folks you and I talk to every day, where the founder is often knee deep in sales and revenue and business development, in many cases, the only one, or the one who shoulders the burden. Even if they have a sales organization, they are the one who shouldered the majority of the burden. It's impossible for an individual to become a master of all channels. So even though the customer may require multi-channels to gain the most effective way to gain mental real estate with them, you have to be honest with yourself in your role and in your capacity. Mm-hmm. Should I be a master of one, or should I do a lot of them badly?
Yeah.
And that's a hard balance to walk sometimes, but it doesn't have to be like you said, Jeff. You go back, what worked? Where did I get wins?
Yeah, the critical thing, again, another pattern I've seen with a lot of MSPs when I was in it and beyond, is because we are default, how can I help people? And we're natural problem solver people. The trap we run into, the Achilles heel there, is just because you have the capability does not mean you have the capacity.
That's
right. And that's another issue, is like, and Jeff actually alluded a little bit to this in his question, or previous to that, right? About marketing agencies. Same is true, right? He's fully capable of doing what he's not doing. And as a result, you're doing it, which means something else had to give. So it really comes down to discipline and capacity and like just executing well. It looks like, to Rob's point, it's better to do one thing supremely well than just a bunch badly. It's perfect. That's exactly it.
That's exactly right. It's a good segue. So I want to pull out Jeff's initial conversation and unpack that. But before we do, I'm going to just remind our viewers that the structured format for this conversation is you folks at the centerpiece. So if you're online watching this right now, if you're dealing with something in your sales pipeline right now, maybe it's a customer you have a proposal out to, maybe you're trying to evaluate whether or not you should hire a business development rep, maybe you have a salesperson that's underperforming, or you're not sure how to equip them, how to pay them, how to structure any of that around making that be a successful initiative in your MSP. There could be any question related to sales, business development, or marketing. This is your opportunity. Drop it in the chat. Use that StreamYard link if you're brave. Join us backstage, and we'll bring you on screen, and you can ask your question. We're still going to run for another 15, 20 minutes, so it's not too late to get your question asked and answered. So let's transition. This next flavor of the conversation is a huge shift from business development tactics to marketing in the age of AI. Well, so much there. I don't know about you guys, but I am like getting inundated with these hot takes about what AI means for sales, for marketing, for our industry specifically. Some of it's really insightful. Some of it is just noise, I think. But the question that Jeff asked, he's like, well, what do you guys really think? Do you think the role of the marketer is dead or is going to die? It's like, because before it used to be we would go to an agency or hire a marketing person in a fractional capacity or bring someone on the team, and all they would do is create marketing assets. But I just went to my vibe coding thing, dropped in all the things I needed, and it spat out something that was better than half the things I've seen full-time professionals create. And the question is the role of the marketer in the MSP industry dead or dying? So, Luis, what do you think?
That's interesting. And then I think of the way I've been using AI lately in all aspects of my life. I don't think it's going to die. It's going to change. It's going to evolve. Just like there are AI agents that are now doing sales calls, like there's something missing. Like, and I think what that thing is missing is the person that's going to be able to correctly prompt or transfer their soul or their viewpoint into something that could do a great job with it. It's great at sorting out ideas, getting different flavors, putting a concept that you can't quite describe, but you can mention enough so it can start hitting it at a moment's disposal is just invaluable, man. But there will always need to be somebody at the helm. There will always be need to somebody to direct it, to give that little piece of their essence so it could take it, filter it, and then put it back out. So I don't think they're gonna replace. I think it's just gonna evolve with all our roles and with all the way we're all trying to move forward with AI. And this is interesting for me because I have my family. My sister is a graphic design artist, and her husband, and I cannot mention AI at their house. Like it is destroying the world, and I'm just like, oh my! I made the mistake of making a graphic design for my mom's business, and I put it out there, and she's like, oh, that's amazing! That's exactly what I wanted, and I did it just knowing my mom, knowing exactly what to prompt, and knowing exactly what her background is, what she resonates with, what she brings forth, like what she wanted. I know my mother. So I made it, and then she's like, this is perfect. To which my sister took huge offense. She was like, I was going to do that. I just didn't have time. And I think that's the key takeaway here. I was going to do that. I just didn't have time.
Yeah, man, I love these takes, Luis. Now, you said we're always going to need someone at the helm. And I don't know that I disagree with you, but I will say there definitely are people who do disagree with you. And these are the ones who are like running or claim to be running their entire businesses where they've like, I've nominated an artificial head of marketing and they're at the helm. I've prompted my person at the helm. I have my own
scary
thoughts on it. Maybe. Jeff, what's your take on this?
Man, there are so many ways to come at that one. But I do agree. Like the first thing I was thinking, and what was really resonating loudly while Luis was giving his take on this, I was going to settle in on the word discernment. Like ultimately, it's the human discernment aspect that is not quite, or it's not fully replicated yet, or nuanced. Like there's different words for it, right? But it's the art and not the science aspect of how you do this. What I think is that it doesn't die, it doesn't go away, it just changes and it evolves, right? I mean, one of the best analogies, and I've heard him give it on stage plenty of times, is David Powell, where he talks about in any industry, doesn't matter what it is, there's a cycle of bundling and unbundling, where things go from a bunch of individual things, they all get packaged into one, and then it decouples and it just breathes and oscillates like that. Think of cable TV, think of really any service, the streaming services, right? There used to be one, now there's a bunch bundled, now they're breaking out again. I think that's just the technology loop as we humans manage through the fact that it's all there. It's a little bit of the trap. One, dopamine, yes. Two, I'm capable. I didn't have these skills. Now I don't need these skills. I think what it's done is it's shortened the feedback loop, and it's made things more accessible to people that maybe didn't have the experience to go from ideation to creation before. So like that bridge is now built, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's better or that it's a direct replacement for what was out there before. Because underneath what most of my interaction and working with people is that AI is not a substitute for the depth of thought. And if you don't stop long enough to think deeply about the thing you're trying to accomplish, then again, humans are like phenomenal supercomputers when it comes to pattern matching. It's really fucking easy to see something that did have a high depth of thought generated by AI versus just like a prompt and an output that was generated by AI. And so it's just a matter of the culture reacting and responding to this bundling and unbundling, the coupling and decoupling of depth of thought and execution, I think, more than anything.
I so much agree. I like to say whenever this kind of comes up, and this isn't just for marketing, it's really for anything, any fear related to jobs being displaced by AI. I like to say, you alluded to this, how humans deal with technology. This is not the first time we've encountered these types of monumental shifts. And guess what? There are no Coopers anymore, but we all still can get a barrel if we need to. There's no cobblers anymore, but I'm betting all of us have shoes. You know, how the service is delivered has changed. How the product is manufactured is changed. And the accessibility that we have to those things that used to be a lot more difficult to come by and a lot more, you know, this, would you trade to go back to where you had to go to your local cobbler to get a pair of shoes custom made for you? I'm sure there's some things we traded off for that, for sure. But I don't know anyone who doesn't appreciate the fact that they can go to any number of stores in their local community when they need a pair of shoes and they can get them. So there's pros and cons to the shift for sure. Marketing isn't dying. The need for the marketer, I don't think, is dying. The role of the marketer is changing for sure. The marketers who will become obsolete are the ones who were overly dependent on their Photoshop abilities and overly dependent on the technical side of marketing that made what, if that was the value layer that you brought to the table, that's less valuable than it used to be because it's way more accessible than it's ever been. But to your point, like machines are great at taking inputs and giving outputs as we've designed them to do within the scope of their abilities and the parameters that they've programmed in. But humans are way more complex than that. And you know, it's funny. I was literally driving to my daughter's awards program at her school this morning, and as I will often do, is I had ChatGPT connected to my Bluetooth, and I was having a conversation with it. Had a very specific question I was trying to ask it, and so I'm speaking through the Bluetooth to ChatGPT to ask this question. And it kept interrupting me, like, and I got frustrated. I was like, "Hey, can you please let me finish?" And I started laughing in the car because I literally got like frustrated and verbally short with this AI. It's like if it had been a human sitting next to me, they would have caught from my intonation. And they're like, "No, I had not completed my thought. Can you give me a second?" It was like humans are not. We need each other. And we will understand each other more than AI will, because guess what? AI was made by humans, right? So we put this gap between technology and people, and it will never be fully closed, I don't believe. So anyways, you seemed like you had something you wanted to tack onto this, Jeff.
No, I can talk about this stuff all day in different directions. But I'm good
all right,
there.
well, let's take a segue because first of all, just to remind everybody, feel free to drop a question in the chat. We still have time for one or two more, but we are joined backstage by our longtime friend, OG viewer, and producer on the show. And he's been in the wings waiting for me to drag his butt on screen. He's shaking his head, but I'm doing it anyways. Mr. Disraeli, Sam, how are you?
Thank you so much. Thank you
I
so much. I'm sitting here in a t-shirt because I'm backstage and I don't get brought up on stage.
No, I had to.
You send me a text message saying put on your shirt, brother.
No, I saw you scrambling to put your shirt on. I was like, I got to get this on here before he gets it fully clothed. So here you are.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I know that it's been a minute since we've been live together, so glad that you're here. So I know you've been backstage, you've been listening a little bit. First of all, I'll give you the opportunity. Did you have a specific question for us, or did you just have a take on what we've been talking about so far?
I don't have right today. We actually was we were out doing the in person. So if you want to talk about the swings in shifts between AI and technology and how it forces people apart and then it forces them back together again. I've been following Mike Bakayich from Iceberg Cyber and his donutting as he celebrates something ridiculous like 400 dozen donuts delivered on behalf of his clients. And the fact that he's apparently maxed out his donut, his Dunkin' Donuts loyalty plan app. But and we have a new staff member on our team that's going to be heading up marketing because as a small business owner with only so many hours in the day, I can't dedicate 40 hours a week to it. And a friend of mine became available, and I thought that he would be perfect fit for this. So we went out and we saw existing clients and prospective clients. We dropped a couple of dozen donuts, several, half a dozen donuts. But it's funny how, so much of what you do and what Luis does, is telephone. And, there's been swings where, it was mail and then it was email and then it was social media. And now we're back to actually pounding the pavement and knocking on doors, whether it's got a gimmick of bringing donuts with us or not. And whether that just is the wedge that we use to open the door and not get the door slammed in our face. So, it was actually, I was surprised at how nice people were when we were knocking on doors that weren't doors that we were it's one thing if you know somebody and they're like, come on in, come and sit, I know I have a 12 o'clock, Zoom call booked, but it's, 11:40 and we can spend 5 minutes. And it was nice that people did that. But even the people that we didn't know, the couple of prospective clients that we hit were actually, they gave us the time to talk to us and is IT working for you or is it not? Do you have somebody in-house or not? And just trying to figure out whether or not people are out there looking for our services and really connecting on a personal level when so much of this has become, what can I blast out into the ether without any real knowledge of whether or not somebody's going to pay attention to it or somebody's going to recognize that I'm an expert in my field. With the cold email and the cold calling and the social media. So I always think there's value in the human. The way I run my business has always been, we always had an element of our monthlies. We were on site when everybody else was outsourcing and trying to do everything as much by remote. I run my business back to before there was ConnectWise and Screen Connect and Teams and Team Viewer. That's the one I was looking for. So I like the fact that I've always prioritized the human element. There's no substitute for walking into somebody's office, especially an existing client, and saying, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here because there's this thing and I've been meaning to email you and it's been pissing me off for 2 weeks." Mm-hmm. So I still think that human element is so much more important. And no matter how much I get deluged by AI ads on Facebook, I know that what we do with the human connection is important. And I know this friend that I just brought on board is important for that human outreach.
Not only I agree with you, Sam. Not only would I say it's important, I would say it's always been at the crux of effective business development and sales. It has always been the cornerstone of especially in the services industries where relationships and partnerships are tantamount or paramount to successful business. Okay. Like, if your customer has a bad experience, there's a high risk of losing that customer. And the best way to facilitate that experience is through connection, authentic, physical, human connection. Yep. And Luis is smiling because he's heard me say this a bajillion times: authentic, physical, human connection. So actually, in some ways, AI is doing us humans who are going back to the basics a big favor. And I'll tell you a real quick.
Yeah. I've got the whiteboard, my brand new whiteboard behind me in my home office today. And Jeffrey's got his get stuff done poster behind him. The only word on my brand new whiteboard is connect. That's the only word, because that's what's important. That's who we're trying to reach. If somebody wants to take, come on board with us, and it's like, oh, you're the right price and we need services, and I don't want to talk to you. I just want to throw money at you. You know what? To a certain extent, I'm like, that's not what my business is about. My business has always been about trying to help the people.
And so when you
getting to know them.
When you reverse engineer what should I do? Should I pull a door? Should I pick up a phone? Should I send an email? I would encourage you, Sam, especially with this new person on your team, and I would encourage anybody watching this who's trying to build their own sales engine, business development engine, whatever, to filter the tactic through the screen of, does this facilitate authentic, physical, human connection? So can an email facilitate authentic, physical, human connection? I would posit that probably can. But does that template you just wrote do it? Or is the mechanism by which you're delivering it going to help serve that connection, or is it going to harm that connection? Those texts that you're going to send, those DMs you're going to send, that ad that you're going to put on Meta or Google or whatever, the video that you're going to put on your website, all of these things can. But physical proximity is the king of this, like walking in their office, meeting that at an event, taking them to coffee, something like that, where they can be physically proximus. Of course, the challenges with that are scale problems. How do you do that at scale?
Yeah, but that's also the trap that this industry suffers from a lot too, is the whole, again, we're problem solvers, we're engineers, we over-engineer the shit out of everything and we overcomplicate it. So even in that lens where you're like, but it doesn't scale. Well, yeah, but neither does doing a bunch of shit that doesn't work, right? It's just the illusion of effort. So what do you want? What you want is the outcome, and the outcome is actual clients. And so is scale really the problem, whether it's blasting 10,000 emails a month that don't get you a return at all, or the 5 doors you happen to go knock on? And we can pull all of that back down into some more tactical stuff. But the thing that I liked about what Sam was saying is, a little bit earlier in the conversation too, is like, what worked before? What have you abandoned that was working before? In the post-COVID world, everyone abandoned ever being face-to-face, period. It's the biggest blessing that MSPs were ever given. But yet the industry pushed you to be like empowered and enabled that we can now live in a remote world. Thank God everyone's okay with using a Teams meeting instead of an in-person meeting. Well, fine. But if you're really trying to do what we've already talked about, like transfer conviction, connect people's nervous systems to nervous systems, and close a freaking deal, then get off your ass and go put a little more effort in and get in front of another human. There's so much that's going to happen in that interaction. Contradicted me.
I actually got surprised last week. I was absolutely blown away. Have you guys ever heard of a company, being in the channel working with MSPs? Have you ever heard of a company called Abstract Marketing?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Abstract, I had talked to and done Zoom calls with when I was a smaller firm a couple of years back, and nothing ever really solidified with them. Yeah. But I got an email 2 weeks ago that said, you know what? I'm the regional for New England, and I'm gonna be in your town next week. Would you like to have a sit down? And I've said, sure. And I'm sitting there doing the math in my head. He says, I'm going to be in town in Connecticut from Monday to Friday. And I'm thinking, he's got a family thing. He's got a wedding he's going to in the weekend, or a bat mitzvah, and he's flying a little early and he's going to do some tours. And he says to me while we were sitting down, he says, No, I've worked for Abstract for like, I don't know what he said, 10 something years. His name was Ryan Newman. I'll give him a shout out. He says, I've been doing Zoom calls consistently for years. And I said, I feel like I'm not connecting. So Abstract is now allowing him to fly and to visit these companies. He's like, no, I didn't have a family thing. This is my 10th trip this year. And I'm guessing he just throws a dart at a map. And he says, I've got 10 prospects around this town. I'm going to fly into that town and I'm going to actually go sit down with these guys and have coffee or have lunch. Go back to, can you imagine people that used to have salespeople that flew everywhere to have in-person meetings, and how much that has stopped since COVID, or even just stopped since the advent of video chats? And now we're actually this company whose job it is to help MSPs connect with their local businesses, says we're going to send emails. We're going to send, we're going to help be this personal touch for you. And they're like, we value the personal. So that's what we're going to bring into our own business. And we're going to fly somebody out from Chicago to come drive around Connecticut and take 10 meetings for 2 days.
Yeah. So you want to know some industries that are very much aware of the effectiveness of meeting for coffee? The people who are the really, really good in real estate, really good in financial services, like financial planning and those types of things, those solopreneurs who are like under some kind of corporate umbrella, but they're really on their own slinging products and services. They have discovered that where they're going to shine the most is by being perceived as a leader in their community, the guy who knows a guy, the person who knows everybody, and who's, regardless of any expectation of you ever doing in business with them, is going to seek that FaceTime with you, take you to coffee, meet you for lunch, show up at your ribbon cutting for your local business and those types of things. And they are onto something that a lot of service providers in our world would do well to replicate, is they want to be where their customer is, where their prospect is. So this gentleman from Abstract is right on. And I would applaud any salesperson who takes the initiative to facilitate that physical connection, regardless of my thoughts on agencies and things like that.
That's one of the points that I keep bringing in. I play on, in my social media, I play on the idea of building networks. Okay, I'm a computer guy. But when I say I'm building networks, I'm not talking about plugging in switches and routers. I try to do that. I'm on the board of my local chamber of commerce. I'm a member of 4 different chambers of commerce, and I really do want people. I get people call me up. They're like, "Do you happen to know a land surveyor?" Well, of course I do. I've got a client that's a land surveyor, and I'm happy to make that introduction. I like building the human networks along with the computer networks.
I love it. Before we have any more thoughts on this, we are about to wrap up, ladies and gentlemen, so it's not too late to ask a question. I would say there's a high chance if you ask it now, it'll probably get banked or queued for 2 weeks from now when we go live again, because we're about to wrap up. Luis, I want you to chime in on some of these thoughts that Sam has been sharing and where you feel about all of this with the whole connection conversation, getting in front of people physically, et cetera, et cetera. And then Jeff, let you kind of tack on, and then I'll wrap up. So Luis, what are your thoughts as we kind of come towards the end?
Cool. This is actually something I was asking myself before coming on. What was like the essence of how can I be as helpful as possible, as Jeffrey was talking about? And it's after training a couple of teams and putting a few people out there, it's exactly what Sam is mentioning. It's that people have really forgotten what their most important asset is that's themselves, their soul. I'm great on a phone, but I murder it live. Like I can charm you on the phone, but I can steal your soul when I'm in front of you. Like I'm that confident when I'm live. I can do it live. And it is a huge thing that we have gotten away from. And now that I'm training teams and getting people out into sales development roles, I realize that the most successful ones upon them are the ones that are actually going out there and meeting people. Yes, they're making their cold calls. Yes, they're putting out marketing. Yes, they're doing emails and LinkedIn touches, but they're not afraid to go out there, because you can only generate so much on a phone. But if you go out there and you meet people, they're like, I don't know, it's emotional depth or emotional depth, that when you call them, they're like, oh, at least they're going to be listening to you already. At least they're going to have that familiarity to speak with you. And if I can get in the ballpark, I can knock it out of the park.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. All right, Mr. Newton, end this conversation, and then I'll wrap us up. Any final closing thoughts for our viewers?
Yeah, like, I mean, the overarching thing that sort of came up through every question, every element of the conversation is like, don't forget that you're a service business. I used to say this all the time when I was in my sales meetings selling MSP services. I would say literally this, and it would turn more light bulbs on than anything else. At the end of the day, we are a service business that happens to work on technology. Most providers look at themselves as a technology company. And as a result, they also treat you like one. It's productized. The service itself is productized. What we're talking about here, what Sam has really talked through, is you are a service business. Like, say it again and say it slower and say it louder. I don't care. Like, it's your service business. You must deliver service. It is a hell of a lot easier to deliver that service when you're in person. And yes, it might, cost a little more to roll a truck, but guess what else is going to happen when you do show up on site? Whatever industry best practice bullshit is telling you to not roll the truck and do it through an RMM, you're going to overcompensate for with the non-recurring revenue side of the business because of what you explore and you discover when you're sitting in their office and you see the receptionist do something that you have a solution for. It's the same way the industry was built, right? The whole industry came from, for the most part, folks that had like HPE jobs or whatever and didn't want to do that anymore, or they didn't want to work for someone else, so they created it. But it's because you had the bedside manner side of the thing down. And like, that's going way back to the beginning of the conversation. Like, pull out the reasons that you got into the business that you did. Why did you start it? How'd you fall in love with it? How'd you get over the initial hump in those early years? Odds are it had a lot to do with the connection and the people and the delivery, the value, the reciprocation that you got when you were face to face. And the best part is, I don't remember who wrote the book, but it was like, when everyone else is zigging, then you zag. Everyone else is falling into the trap. They have been for years, into the digital aspects of all of that touches, because it's easy. And if it's easy, of course it scales. It's also trivial and most of the time superficial. So if you want results, then go the other direction, and it's worth your time.
I love this. I love this. Well, I have to give you this, Sam. When you wrote up on the board, serve, connect and serve, it just made, I don't know. I think in Greenville on the cop cars here, it says protect and serve.
Protect and serve.
Here's a free marketing concept for you. You need to go buy like a Dodge Charger or something and wrap it. You can't make it look like a cop car because you get in trouble. But like just do weird
close
colors,
enough.
Make it look close enough, and then instead of protect and serve, it's connect and serve. So yeah.
But we're cybersecurity. So I was actually spinning in my head. I would have written protect. I answered 911. I was a lifeguard. I was a firefighter. My first actual logo for my first company IT business was what's called a Maltese cross, which is the fireman's cross.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now we use the shield a little bit more, but you're absolutely right. My logo, my mantra this week is going to be connect, protect, and serve, because that's what it is about.
I love it. All right, folks, we are going to wrap it up here. I appreciate you all. If you're watching this back later on LinkedIn or YouTube, you can still ask your questions, and we'll queue them up for the next live stream, which should be 2 weeks from today, Wednesday, 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. And I want to thank Sam for being here. I want to thank Jeffrey Newton, our co-host, for being here. Luis, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for hanging out with us. And if you are watching us now live, we are very grateful for you spending some of your time today with us. We'll catch you on the next MSP Water Cooler. Make it a great one, folks. See you next time.
Toodles.
Sure.